Let your curiosity rise.
Matrix webcast,
Where the human spirit flies. Matrix webcast. Where the human spirit flies.
Hey, welcome to the Medbix webcast. This is Raman Raju. I'm the host. That music, one of the, I love that wakes you up, all of you guys. I hope that music. But anyway, we have very, it's my the today presentation, and today guest is from actually back of my hood in the back home. And I don't know her personally, but she speaks same language as mine. She's going to be pediatric intensivist, pediatric ER. We're going to talk with her for a few minutes. She is suffering from a cold, so a little bit of we're not going to let her talk too much, and then let her stay in the background a little bit. She's going to say a couple of words, a few words, and then I'm going to present a topic very close to my heart. It is truly inspirational to me. This is I may be controversial when I say this. This is maybe my indirect frustration or something. Technology is science, is the fundamental of the basic sciences. Technology is a theft of science, basically, indirectly. There is a theft of science is technology. That's technology. So you don't have to. Where is science? Science is public. So to pay for the science, you have to pay to the public or you bribe. One of them things unfortunately happens in this world. But anyway, bottom line is I'm truly excited about this one. Is I tell you, I have a lot of personal connections with the presentation that I have. But without a further ado, Rama Pullela. I'm always having a hard time with last name Pullela because I grew up with all of them. There is so many variations for this webcast. But let me bring first my podcast co-host, and she's evergreen, Dr. Susan Davis. Welcome, Susan. Welcome to the Medbix webcast.
Why, thank you, Ramana. Thank you so very much.
So you're fully ready to go. Tell us a little bit about this, your journey into the new American Heart Association journey, a little bit briefly, if we can do that.
Sure, very briefly. Well, actually, we have a connection to tonight's, to Dr. Pullela, our guest tonight. She's a pediatric intensivist, so she deals a lot with hearts, as do I. So as the Woman of Impact for the American Heart Association, I'm just bringing awareness to the fact that the number one killer of women is heart disease. So more than all of the cancers put together, women are dying of heart disease. So part of this campaign is just to make sure that we bring awareness to that. We talk about it a little bit more and do our best to help women in preventative care for anything to help them with their heart. So I'm very pleased to be part of that campaign. So that's what we're doing.
Congratulations, a well-deserved honor. Okay, let me bring, this is today's podcast is going to be, if she is having a little bit of problem with the cold, she called me yesterday. So let me bring she's been working for Kaiser Permanente for a long time. We have a lot of Kaiser Permanente guests on our show. So she is working, and then she is working for a consultant of California Department of Health, I think. And then she's trying to do a lot of this new AI stuff. Let me bring Dr. Rama Pullela. Welcome, Rama.
Thank you, Ramana, and thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
So tell me a little bit about your background, a little bit, Rama, where you came from. And I told that you're from my neighborhood, but go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I am from your neighborhood. I'm back from India, from southern part of India, in a city called Hyderabad, which is actually growing pretty fast these days. And I came to United States after completing medical school and a little bit of pediatric experience in India. And then I initially came to New York. I studied my pediatric residency at SUNY Downstate in Brooklyn, New York. So I used to live in live in New Jersey, and pretty much I travel like twice or thrice a week across all the possible bridges and tunnels from New Jersey to New York. So that was the most interesting part of my residency, actually going through the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge, all kinds of all the Holland Tunnel, Lincoln Tunnel. I used to take all of that, but then I moved here and did my fellowship in pediatric critical care at UCSF. And then I worked as assistant professor at UC Davis for a couple of years, and then came back and joined Kaiser Permanente Oakland as a pediatric intensivist. And then worked between Oakland and Kaiser Santa Clara. And most recently, I moved on to become a medical consultant in California Department of Public Health in Center for Healthcare Quality. Also, as I'm doing my pediatric ICU, practicing my pediatric ICU, I got very interested in a more broader impact of how the infrastructure of healthcare and the entrepreneur part of the healthcare. So I started doing MBA about 2.5 years ago, and will be finishing later this year. I'll be completing my MBA. And meanwhile, while I'm doing this, I founded a small telehealth company in India, which basically is which is basically a telehealth platform with a practice management software. And while I'm working on it, I spent a lot of time working with IT engineers in trying to get the platform. I also basically now got interested in the AI features, of course, with Kaiser Permanente. There is so much of AI education we received by that Kaiser Permanente. So right now I'm like trying to implement some of the AI features in the software that I've developed, and trying to make it more, trying to make actually a global platform where pediatricians can communicate on the global platform from all over the world. So that is in introducing some AI features where people can discuss their difficult cases, share the knowledge, share all the knowledge, and and that's what I'm currently doing with my platform.
I'm a, I'm not, I'm a man, and I don't have a kid. I didn't give a life to kids. So let both of you to work on together, talk together. I will be behind the scenes. Let me ask you one question before we do. That's a question is important, and some of the doctors are asking me. What are these pediatric readiness? For the Susan is also expert in this area a little bit. Pediatric readiness is all these are not only Susan always says training is as important as equipment. So is there any, we in the United States, all the hospitals, rural and urban areas, are all equipped with the proper equipment and training, and all these things are there, or how much we are lagging behind? Or if there is an urgent care center, that if you minor emergency care, when you go to, my son he used to have an asthma, and when he was a kid, I used to take him to hospital. 4 hours, 5 hours wait. It is just I thought this is a country where you can solve this problem so easy. But tell me about this readiness how that pediatric readiness works in this country, and how then you can give me some summary in India also, how bad it is in India.
Yeah. So you probably already know the answer. But even so, in terms of pediatric readiness, like even in most of the pediatric PICUs, or the level 3, the trauma centers and higher level of care of PICUs, we call it tertiary, quaternary, where you have majority of the infrastructure available. That's all concentrated in the urban areas. As you go into the rural areas, the statistics and all the studies shows that they're definitely not equipped with the infrastructure, and then the mortality is definitely higher. About a quarter of rural areas, they take more than 60 minutes to come to a pediatric center. In this is in United States, and accordingly, their mortality is also higher. So I worked in Kaiser system, and actually Kaiser has a pretty good system where we have installed cameras and installed telehealth. But it all depends. We have a sick kid, for example, if we are in the East Bay, and if we have a patient, a little kid, say in septic shock, that's about 2 hours or 3 hours away from where we are. And if this kid, these are, especially pediatric patients, don't have much reserve, so they can't hold on to their blood pressures, they can't hold on to their saturations for too long. So if they don't get immediate high level pediatric care, they can really succumb. And that's unfortunately what we used to see sometimes. Sometimes it was totally dependent on, okay, we stabilize the kid, but we need to get the kid from 3 hours from where we are to our pediatric center. And it's dependent on the traffic, it's dependent on the availability of ambulance, sometimes it's dependent on the weather. So there are so many external environmental and external features that are actually becoming challenging and roadblocks in taking care of those little kids. So I think even within the urban centers, not all emergency departments have pediatric ER doctors, and not all hospitals. For example, if I live in Dublin, and there is, and I don't have any pediatric emergency room or pediatric PICU. This is in East Bay. This is in the middle of near the San Francisco, but for example, in Tracy, there is really no pediatric center. They have to travel 30 to 40 miles to come to a pediatric center. So I think it's even though it looks like we're in the middle of the urban area, unfortunately, that is the truth. But once you're in a big pediatric center, and once you receive good care, then the morbidity and mortality is very, very minimal. But reaching to that particular pace is definitely challenging, even here, even within the Bay Area.
Rama, can you raise your camera a little bit higher so we are on the same? Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
same.
that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Dr. Pullela, pediatric readiness, Ramana, is a really great question, but it's such a multi-tiered answer. I mean, yes, you're talking about rural and the distance to a facility, and then when they get to the facility, is it a pediatric facility? But I don't think people realize that, the treatment of a baby on up to, like we were talking just before the show, older pediatrics, they're not just little adults, and the care isn't just little adult care. Everything is so different. The size of the equipment, the dosages, the care is so very different and specialized. And the
I don't know. She is. She is gone.
I
So
got
she was.
Back to the other
anyway,
side.
what I was going to say was, even in EMS, when it's a pediatric emergency, everybody steps up, but we don't get as much practice as we should, and it can make people very uneasy. And so it's a great question, Ramona. Pediatric readiness is something that I think the entire globe needs to step up our game on. And I'm always very thankful for physicians like Dr. Pullela who make a career of, and not only just regular peds, intensivists. That's a big deal. We're talking about a lot of advanced equipment for very, very sick children that you take care of. So great question, Ramana.
Go ahead. You have a lot more to talk about it than me.
Well,
So
I think just, I often talk about the difference between, I talk about the hospital. Let's just say they make it to a hospital. And I talk about the difference, Dr. Pullela, I call it like a hospital hamburger. So, you are up there in the top bun in the ICU. It's clean, it's seated, it's nice. There's a lot of advanced equipment, a lot of advanced training, and a lot of advanced illness. And so the training there looks different than it does in the emergency room because they're coming in hot sick. And we're not quite sure what that what the treatments were, in the ambulance. How far did they travel before they got there? So I guess my question to you is, up in the ICU where you spend a great deal of time, is there, let's just go with something like ECMO. I think you have an experience with ECMO. I believe I read that you started an ECMO center. That must have been
Yeah, UC
amazing. Tell
Davis.
us about that. UC Davis.
UC Davis, yeah.
So you started, how was that starting a program like that from scratch?
That was very interesting. I just finished my fellowship at UCSF, and UCSF has a very big ECMO program because they do a lot of cardiac patients. So, and then I moved on to UC Davis as that was my first job, but was very young, energetic, ambitious, and all those things. And they just started a cardiac program, and they wanted to expand the cardiac program. So they want to do single ventricles, which means like the cardiac surgeries at high risk cardiac surgeries. And when a program does that, they should have a backup ECMO. So anyway, so myself and medical director and also the pediatric PICU chief, so we along with our cardiac surgeon, and we had another nurse who was doing MS, and she made it as her project. So we actually went to Maryland, and we Washington, and then we basically did ECMO on a sheep. So we basically were there for 48 hours, and we ran all the scenarios, and we did ECMO on a sheep, and then we came back, and we went to the UC Davis veterinary lab, and again did one more run, and then we had all the order sets and everything, policies, procedures. So three of us basically worked on it. It was very interesting, and then and we started the ECMO program over there, and it's pretty huge right now. 3 years after I left and came back to Bay Area for family reasons, but it's one of the very well established ECMO program at UC Davis. They do I don't know the exact number, but they do a fair number of volume of ECMOs there. It's about 18 years ago, and I still remember every single day I spent there with these ECMOs, because I was very involved as a program. Launching the program was very involved in those.
So 18 years ago, I wonder if you have any thoughts. I've been seeing, in the nursing world, and I've got a colleague who works a lot, and she works with awake and walking ICUs. So trying to keep sedation as low as possible for intubated patients. When I was thinking about speaking with you tonight, I realized that I don't ever hear any conversation about that in the pediatric world. And that could just be that it's my circle of influence. But is that a thing just out of curiosity, awake and walking? I know I've seen ECMO patients, children on bicycles, for goodness sakes. And to me, I was like, oh, how do they do that? I feel like the risk. So talk about readiness. But is it a thing, awake and walking ICUs for the pediatric population?
Are you talking about awake and walking patients on ECMO, or in general?
Well, I guess mostly it's intubated patients. So the goal of keeping intubated patients where they're, to prevent delirium and prevent muscle wasting, and, get them out of there quicker. I just haven't seen it in the pediatric population. I don't know if it's something is that something that you're aware of?
Yeah, that's a great point. Initially, when, in the past, we used to keep all patients sedated. We, were very worried about moving patients who have lines and endotracheal tubes. And, as we moved along, a lot of studies came out saying that early mobility is one of the indicators of, is a good prognostic indicator. So a lot of ICUs actually have established, procedures and policies, and and then as they had guidelines as to how to make these patients mobile as soon as possible. So, for example, in Kaiser, when I work, it's a part of our daily rounding where you say, like, okay, did we do early mobility protocol on these patients? So that's something that's caught up, and it's now pretty much every big ICU has early mobility protocols. That said, the question is, are we wheeling down intubated patients down the hallways, or into the into the rehab areas, or into the outside? In pediatrics, I know that there are There are PICUs that are very eager, and some PICUs have done it as an more as an exception rather than a routine. I know in adults it's more routine, but knowing pediatric patients like a toddler would not tolerate being completely awake and having an endotracheal tube. That's a big no. They just take it out. So I think given the characteristics of the pediatric population, it's not as common. People are a lot of things have changed. Before, we never used to move patients who are on a ventilator. Now we make them sit up, go onto a cardiac chair. So we are making pediatrics is making big strides in terms of early mobility. And I went to an ECMO conference once, and then I have like there's a center that talked about how they wheeled a teenager who was on ECMO to a hospital garden or something. So not that common, because the cannulas, they're like very fragile. The cannulas are small, and especially in younger kids, the risk of decannulation is much higher. So I think it's moving towards slowly, and not as quickly as adults. But I know in adults, people just walk around with LVADs and all. So, but that's definitely the direction that PICU is and pediatric population is going. And early mobility is just one of the actually metrics that they follow to for quality outcomes.
I love that. It's by exception, I would agree, but it seems logical. But I think people, and then when you see an image of, forget the intubated patient, driving a car, but down the hallway. But when you get the ECMO patients, I don't think people I don't know if that sets a very unrealistic expectation. When something like that comes out of social media.
It's not unrealistic, but it's very, it's resource intense, I would say. To make that move, basically, it requires a lot of resources. We don't want them to decannulate. So, even just to move ECMO patient down to cath lab, sometimes ECMO patients go down to cath lab just to get corrective cath lab procedures. That itself is resource intensive. So it definitely, I'm not saying it's impossible. People are doing it, but it's not the routine.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. So what else is happening in your pediatric world? You are from, ECMO by day and innovation by evening, working on software, a global software goals. That's very exciting. It's people are talking about a lot of physicians that are doing things that are, away from the bedside, not full-time, part-time, but as a side gig, let's just say. And there's a lot of talk about, like, why is it the whole burnout thing, or is it more just your ikigai? Is it you're finding purpose in more than one way to serve?
I think so. For me, and I think in the past, a physician was purely a physician. But over the last 18 years, I've seen that now, as a new batch of medical students graduating, coming into residency, nobody just has only a medical degree. A lot of people, I see at least 50% of them have other skills. They come with computer skills, they come with entrepreneurship skills. They're not just purely physicians. And I also see that those who have all these extra skills, they have a better perspective of just being a clinician. For example, now that I have done my MBA, I've learned a lot about what actually trickles down. What we see in the bedside is finally as a system, not just for the patient, but as a system. It's just the tip of icebergs. And when I'm doing MBA, it was also a biotech MBA. I learned a lot about how health insurances come to play in, how eventually they dictate as to how we write a prescription. What is, like, how do we decide which medication, and then it trickles down to, like, okay, the health insurance. Then there are so many pharmacy managers who kind of like negotiate the price. So it just gives a much better perspective and put a lot of things sometimes that we don't know in perspective. So I feel like it's important to have it just changes your perspective, and you can actually do a better job and be more impactful once you have a broader idea of what actually is going on. So I see that a lot of, like, those new, like in the last few years, a lot of clinicians do come with extra different skills. And for example, like when I was at Kaiser, like one of the ear doctor was like, he's an expert in AI integrations, and that was very helpful because we were able to integrate early warning signs for kids in the ED when they have early warning signs. It's easy. It makes it easier when using the AI tool to pick up kids who are who are at a higher risk of clinical deterioration while they're in the ED. So I think it was very helpful. It's very helpful to have extra skills.
Yeah, and it's a very, very different education than your medical. I'll speak from your medical education and my nursing education. There's the first level of nursing education is the associate degree nurse, and you're prepared in a pretty short period of time, and you're ready to go to work and start taking care of patients. Bachelor's, master's, doctorate, I've gone through the whole route, but it wasn't until I got to the higher level of education that I started learning the business behind healthcare. And it doesn't come in the early phases. And so all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, somebody has to keep the lights on in this place so that we can all come to work. And to your point, people coming now with a whole bunch of tools in their tool belt rather than just clinical care, I think it offers a real full offering yourself in a more full way to your patients, to your family, and to your community as well. I mean, we can talk about your experience wanting your telehealth program in India to be a global resource. So is there a specific area of telehealth that you're wanting to focus on?
That's what so I think initially it was just more general, and I as I researched more, a lot of companies now offer general telehealth, but I want to build it more specific. I was at a global neonatal society in Stockholm conference, and people from Africa, they actually were there, and they kind of like, okay, but we have a baby that's born in a remote area. We don't know how to resuscitate. There is no help. So my hope is to create a global platform for pediatrics where people can actually share information, help out each other, like volunteer doctors. Like a person in Africa should be able to just like call a doctor in more resourceful areas, and they can guide the resuscitation. Or if there are like unused medical equipment, it could be we could divert the resources to those areas. So right now I want to make my platform more pediatric and neonatal specific, just to make it a platform where people can share knowledge, share resources, and all of that. So that's where I'm going right now.
That is magnificent. I mean, the world is in our children. The world is our children.
Yeah.
So I do know from recent studies on my own that the World Health Organization is created this, it's called the Basic Emergency Care Program, specifically starting with mother and infant mortality around in Africa, in Indonesia. And I think in the last couple of years, they've had quite a bit of success with this new training program. To your point, is how do we get to these? If we're having a hard time getting 2 hours to an American hospital, 4 hours, like Ramana was saying earlier, that he had to travel his children. Can you imagine in Africa and Indonesia areas where they don't have EMS and they don't have a 911, phone number that they can call? We're working on an international 911 that they can call. But what does that care look like until help arrives? It truly unites us as humans on the globe. And that's something that I'm so pleased that you're working on that. And the pediatric is, I know that from that program, they've recently, that they've improved maternal deaths by 70% and infant mortality by 40% just in those first 2 years. So stay tuned. I'll be wanting to hear more about your new program.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have the plan, and the software. I've reached out to people to help me develop that software. So fingers crossed, maybe in the next 3-4 months. And I hope it turns out the way I hope to help people.
Wonderful.
Yeah, Rama, you just one more thing, just the last question, and then I'm going to do my presentation now. I wanted to ask you about the vaccines. There a lot of controversy going on vaccines, and then on the top of it, we have an infant mortality rate is not less as an industrialized nation. Do you have some kind of a idea about what is going on there? Or do you have some analysis about that?
Well, I think based on in United States and is a developed country now. It's emotional and very politically charged topic. But the bottom line is, I'm from India, and I've seen patients. I've seen patients die of polio, diphtheria, tetanus. The diphtheria patients, they would just even I got diphtheria, but they would just close down their airway. They would have myocarditis, and we would be watching. They would have all kinds of dysrhythmias and then just die. So I've seen deaths occurring, and I still remember a baby from my training who was having tetanic spasms and couldn't breathe because of the laryngeal spasms. So I've seen deaths, and and there is enough amount of evidence from all of that these vaccines work. So I know. So I mean, based on the evidence which has been clearly established, and based on what I actually saw with my own eyes, I think it's definitely, vaccines have helped. Vaccines are helping. It's I think it's based on all the social media and the new news coming up. I don't blame people if they have second doubts about vaccine, but it's important for them to bring it to their pediatrician and have a discussion rather than have a blanket statement or like vaccines are bad. I think it's, people are allowed to have their opinions, and doctors are there and for educating and showing clinical evidence. And there might be patients where the vaccine has caused some side effects, and it's something that needs to be discussed on individual basis.
Yes, yeah, Rama, I'm going to present a topic entirely a little bit different, but it's kind of connected with you. We are from the same state, so we can talk a little bit about it in that sense. So I am.
Well, I will be off camera just for a second. Something is happening with my computer, so I'm gonna fix that and then come back on camera.
I put you on the side. Yeah, you
Okay.
sound. Yeah, if you want to go to the restroom and come back, yeah, please. Uh, this is a very good information for even for pediatrics in that sense. I went to school there in Bhimvaram, India. I don't know whether you know Bhimvaram city town, where now my Ramya is coming is from. So this is where I went to school to study physics. Susan. So Navya, you want to come down on this? Fine. So I used to go to this. What is this? I wrote a letter to particularly for this uh, space launch in India. At the time, there was a Pakistan and India war going on, and then I wrote a letter to the CRE, the government of India. So we want to visit as a physics students. We want to visit this place, and they allowed me. Surprisingly, they allowed us during the middle of the war because we are physics students and they want to encourage us. So I took the trip. I took so much pride inside of that to visit the space center. When I was when I came to this country, first thing I took my children to space center. They hated it. So it is my privilege, but it is a really fantastic experience. My father was a space enthusiast, and I loved that space. Something inspired me inside of me to study physics. Really, space is a very, very enthusiastic. But space is a separate mission now. It is an enthusiastic in enhancing life, exposing space and enhancing life. NASA Human Health. It is a human health is actually there's a mission going on, and this is a people don't know this. For example, the coffee cup you're doing is a styrofoam cup. The styrofoam came from space, the heat shield. So that is there is a lot of inventions came from space. I'm going to talk about how he is going to help the mission. Artemis 2 is going to the moon soon, in few days. They're going to the moon. They're not landing on the moon. They're going around the moon. There is two, three, four individuals: Jeremy Hansen, Christiana Koch, Victor Glover, and Reed Wiseman. These are all going to the moon. That is where they're going to stay most of the time. in the right side, the one you see a big, very small space. It's like a small room, 10 by 10 room. I don't know how they can stay there for 10 days together without bumping each other. It is very fascinating. So it's ready to go, ready to be launched. They're not landing on the moon, they're going around the moon a little bit. You know why they're doing that? They want to test. This is a very interesting, uh, why I'm interested in this one. There is a gentleman, his name is Jeremy Hansen. He's from Canada, and his wife is Catherine Hansen. Dr. Catherine Hansen came on my podcast a couple of times. Dr. Catherine Hansen was wonderful lady, wonderful guest. I interviewed her on my podcast. Uh, she told me it was so much pride, Susan. They told me that the astronaut watch my show, sometimes. Thank you, Catherine. Dr. Hansen, is an honor for me, more than anything. My father will be turning in the heavens. So thank you so much, Dr. Hansen. Please come back. I know she responded to me such a hectic. They are all probably in Florida. Waiting for they're all already sealed up. They're ready to go. So she must be in Florida. And in fact, with all this busyness, she responded to my email. Thank you, Dr. Hansen. She has her own right. She's an OBGYN doctor. Both are from Canada. She came from Cold Lake. I used to make fun of her. You don't have to go to moon to find the coldness. You can see the cold in Cold Lake, Canada. So here it is. She's from a cold place. Thank you, Dr. Hansen. Thank you, Mr. Jeremy Hansen. I want you to have a beautiful trip to the moon and wait for the call. We are going to wait for the call from the moon. This is Dr. Catherine Hansen. She came on my show. She was she's Empowered Circle. She has this podcast. And then one of the things she said that to me, it was stuck with me. She said that curiosity is the stress. When you feel stress, nowadays, I feel a lot of stress nowadays. I feel stress. Curiosity is the best solution. Don't even worry about it. Become curious. It is a stress buster. I truly follow. To be honest with you, that is my mantra nowadays when I'm under stress. But anyway, so thank you, Dr. She is a menopause expert. She is a OBGYN doctor, and her husband is an astronaut. So they came from Canada. It's a big shift from Canada to here. Thank you. It is truly an honor for me. So how does Artemis 2 mission work? It's actually it is human performance mission. This is a medical mission. A lot of people don't know this. Artemis 2 is a medical mission. It's not a space exploration. It is a medical mission. They want to know how the humans are performing during the space flight. That is the main thing, particularly long distances. So it is they use a very strange physics, not a strange physics. It's we know you take a frisbee and you throw it out, the frisbee goes around and come back to you, right? That's one of the things we do in the swimming pool and all those places. That's exactly what they do here. They throw they use escape velocity. They need rockets to get out of the earth. So you need 22,000 miles per hour. That is a very fastest way. You need to get out of the earth's gravitational field, and then goes around, and then gravitational energy itself takes it around and then brings it back to the earth. This is like a frisbee throwing it around. No energy required, only direction required. So it is a machine. Humans and systems is a checkup. That's what it is. This machine is a purely medical mission. Indirectly is a medical mission. It's not anything else. People didn't know that. It is a human performance mission. What they're testing, this is one of the, if you are testing, this is the place to test, where there's no special consults, no specialists, no emergency room, no ICUs, no imaging on demand, no pharmacies, no ICU backups. What do? When you go to the Mars or any place, interstellar distances or interplanetary distances? This is, if you answer that questions, we have a lot of questions. We have an abundance in the earth. We can solve that problem. If you answer those questions in space, we have a lot of solutions actually for the earth, a lot of access and quality and care. So what is what they do in space? The first and foremost is physiological monitoring. They're going to monitor heart rate. And most important is, actually, people don't know this, heart rate variability, the real usage came from space. Russian Mir space station really did that, invented that heart rate variability. So heart rate variability is between the signals, the frequency between the two beats. What it does tell you a lot more than just the beats, how infrequent these beats are. It tells you autonomic function test. It gives you a very of a state of the health of the person. Heart rate variability, one biomarker can tell you a lot more about that patient. That is where it came from. It came from space. With all the constraint, they found out the fluids, the sleeplessness, all the circadian rhythm. They're going to monitor hydration, fluid shifts, oxygen saturation. All of them they're going to manage that there. Apple Watch came out of that heart rate variability system. Actually, heart rate variability is actually discovered a long time ago, but actually they found out the real value of the heart rate variability in the space. Now, HRV changes dramatically in microgravity. You can see the huge contrast in the heart rate variability in the microgravity. Microgravity means there is still gravity is everywhere, but microgravity means almost gravity is nothing there. Fluid shifts, how the nervous system is functioning, stress and isolation, mental, psychological pressures, workload, and human critical systems. So heart rate variability is a human critical system. So they're going to wear something like not much more sophisticated than Apple Watch, but it is. Then another one is a cognitive loading. They're going to do cognitive neurobehavioral testing. How do you reaction with all these things going on? How do you focus? There is a mission controls. There is a lot of variabilities are there. How do you control these missions? Reaction time, how fast you are, attention and focus. These are all neurobehavioral testing. They do that. They perform structured tasks. They tell you this is the task here. They can measure through all the processes how you are attentive, how you are focusing things. Very strange. It's a purely medical mission, this is. So the attention and focus, decision making, under fatigue, and stress and workload tolerance, they're all going to test those things. One of them actually came back from space, is a neurofeedback system. Nowadays, neurofeedback is a training program, brain training program. That is how you can move from beta waves to alpha waves quickly, from calm you down. Rama, he's one of the great idea for Dublin area to put a brain cafe. I'll give you all these things. If the mothers can come, children can come, you can calm them down within seconds by using these new technologies. It's a very interesting. It's a cognitive load, isolation, no margin of error. You cannot have a lot of margin of error is not there. So one of the things they're going to test is how many human and machine, AI and humans interactions. Human is at the center. This machine is not testing AI, it's testing the humans, how they interact with AI. That's the most powerful one. The next one is one of the dangers in the Dr. Hansen. I'm not scaring you. You know already, you're a doctor, Dr. Hansen. But radiation exposure is one of the things. Is a biology is one of the riskiest one. Higher cosmic radiation, because there is no magnetic field. It doesn't protect you from the radiation. Solar particles constantly hit hit the satellites and hit the spaceship. So, what is this? They can damage the DNA, then that they so that's one of the things. It is, I don't want to say too many things about cancer. Is one of them. Is outcomes in this one, and they become a shorten out. They age faster. They become short. Actually, there's a small. They become shorter than before. Osteoporosis is one of the things. So, what is the benefit came from the radiation exposure? We come to know how to do the MRI CT scan much better. See, so photon by photon scintillators detection, we know how to do that because in space. Noise reduction algorithms we develop in space are using for the contrast agents like MRI, CT scan images. So that is where really the radiation things we test. Space is not a waste of time to going there. So the last one, I'm going to tell you this one. So what is then space they do? One of the very powerful drug is a immunotherapy drug. It's called Keytruda by Merck. So Merck makes this Keytruda immunotherapy drug. It attacks the TB cells. Or maybe both of them can talk about it more than I do. But what is a big change? What they did in the Earth, most of the crystals are flattened out because of the Earth's gravity. When you go to the moon, when you go to the space, these are three-dimensional structures they form. So when you form a three-dimensional structure, the interacts the molecules much different. So what they found out is, if you do that, just giving a simple injection is enough for Keytruda, then you drip into the hours and hours through the other process, infusion. That's a direct advantage from space. The Keytruda advantage is that you can give injection, can go home. Here is, if you don't have that, so space gave us a beautiful science. Protein crystal growth is a big science. Protein crystals in the growing in the space. So the next one is, actually, this is a very interesting story. There is a guy got a NASA grant, and then he was how the plants listen to the music or listen to the light. He was testing it. So Rodney Ignatius, his name, he's in Wisconsin. He was testing that. He gave a small grant for him. During this time, they were working on the plants, and their hands are getting cut sometimes. So they're healing so fast. They're working with the lights, LED lights. The healing is done accelerated pace. They were surprised at what is really causing the light healing the wounds. What they found out is that is a pulse radiations. The light therapy came out of that one whole thing. This is called photoceuticals. Then the FDA approved for fibromyalgia. They approved for it, actually, the phototherapy. Not only that, they can give a contrast agent, Susan, they can give a contrast agent, light sensitive, and then direct to the cancer cell and blow it up there. They expose the light there and blow it up. This is a new kind of a science is coming up. It's called photoceuticals. It's a fascinating field is coming up. So it's already, you can buy these things in there. This is a much better, I don't know how old are you. I don't know, you must be, I don't want to talk about this both woman's age, but I can tell you is a new technology came out of the NASA spin-off. It's called menopause clothes. These are the temperature, automatically regulated temperature. It came from the NASA gloves. They manage the temperature because hot flashes. I don't know much about menopause, So this is a thermocules, they call thermocules. Tiny polymer shells. They're all designed it. You can buy them now, actually, 51april.com. These are for women, we are going through severe menopausal issues. You can do that. Temperature stabilization, phase shift it does. Amazing spin-off from the NASA. So There is a aero fellow. If the doctors wants to continue, even the nurses can go there. Actually, there is a 2-year fellowship in the UCLA and in NASA and a Mayo Clinic. You can do the aerospace fellowship there. If you want to do 4 weeks clerkship, you can do that at those places. 4 weeks clerkship is also available. So Mayo Clinic and NASA, UCLA offers this. You have to be family practice nurse, nurses, family practitioners, emergency room, ENT surgeons. They're all available. That is available, that fellowship. So space is ultimate. What is space? Space is ultimate test for the human biology. We are putting the humans in a place that is impossible to survive. That's we are testing the limits of human survival. So I created a human MedBricks ultimate test for health systems. MedBricks predicted a human care capacity and the healing index. These are two tests. I use the same NASA physics to test the healthcare systems, health of healthcare systems. I did briefly mention to Susan, but I came up with algorithms. I used the same kind of physics and mathematics that develop that indexes and tell you whether this particular healthcare plan is going to survive or is doomed to fail. It is centered around the humans. Even the NASA is not, these AIs are pretty little bit noise people. You cannot avoid humans. Humans has to be centered. NASA is not dumb. NASA is putting us humans at the center and the technology on the interaction there. It's not putting AI first and the NASA humans next. So I always say that science is technology. Technology people theft technology is a theft of science. They're not paying anything back to the public. They're bribing now. Unfortunately or fortunately, whatever the system it is. So you cannot leave the basic science. That inspired me as a kid. It really gave me to see the wonders of science. My father was a village doctor in a village in a small village. That gave me so much. I can connect to the space and the medicine together. That is my truly inspiration for me, personally gratifying. That is the world I want to return, not the greed and this noises so much. Just go to that human, particularly human generated, that intelligence, and then that wonder about science and the curiosity about science. If you create the humans that way, the world is unlimited. When we create a greed, there is nothing is enough for greed. Everybody is unlimited greed. Everybody wants everything else. There is no satisfaction there. Thank you for watching, all of you. Welcome to the MedBix webcast. So NASA is a new frontier in medicine, telemedicine, disease models, psychological stress response, nutrition and aging, all of them. Our next wonderful lady is coming up in the next week or so. She's one of the world renowned nutritionist, and the medical doctor is coming on the show. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Rama. You are. Let me bring you back. Rama, you can tell about a little bit ECMO. So this is the NASA's my journey to, the Rama, if you remember or not, Sriharikota is located in Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for the space launching station.
yes, that's right. Okay, now you can talk about anything else. Susan, you can make a small comment and then we can go from there.
Well, I guess I was thinking, Dr. Pullela, the whole time. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Ramana. It's neat to know what's happening in space and to connect all of that medical. It doesn't seem like a very big space for all those people in that little capsule. But I was thinking, Dr. Pullela, I know in my work often, especially, we'll just use Ramana's presentation, it's always about adults. And I notice in my work and in healthcare systems, it seems like the majority of conversations are adult care. And then kind of as an afterthought, it says, oh, and does this policy refer to the peds? Oh, well, is this part of the peds conversation? Or do you find that? I mean, you are in the pediatric world, so perhaps your whole world is pediatric. But I wonder, does it seem like there's enough forefront attention to pediatric needs in healthcare systems? Is that a weird question?
You know, I feel like, see, not every big hospital has children's hospital, right? Most of the time I feel like we do get, as pediatricians, we're not in the forefront, like, basically, like, the fact that the number of pediatric hospitals are much less than the number of adult hospitals, and pediatrics is always a part of the adult hospital system, even though like the whole way we operate operationally and clinically, things are so much different. I wish pediatrics got more more recognition as a specialty by itself. And even in drug trials, for why, for obviously reasons, everything percolates to pediatrics at the end. And and I mean, unfortunately, even the billing and like how things are reimbursed, pediatrics gets reimbursed very less. And as a reflection of that, actually, a lot of pediatric residency programs didn't fill pediatricians, because it was like pediatricians are getting less popular because of all these reasons. But I just feel like, I think pediatrics should get more recognition. There should be more willingness to recognize it as a specialty itself, and give appropriate financial stability to run all these pediatric programs. So and of course, as I said, like, even within the ERs, within like the most urbanized Bay Area, you don't find so much pediatric expert. There are few pediatric centers where everybody has to go. So, like, for example, in Kaiser, the pediatric ICU for the whole Northern California, there are just 3 centers, like Santa Clara, Kaiser, Oakland, and so
I agree with.
I think
I
pediatrics is
agree
more
with that reimbursement. I agree with the reimbursement side, Dr. Rama. Thank you so much. Another thing is, I want just briefly, very briefly, my mind time is getting over. 1 minute, both of you can explain to me. You're talking about ECMO. I don't know exactly what that is. I just, less than 30 seconds if you can explain.
Go ahead,
Rama,
Doc.
go ahead.
Ramona,
Rama.
It's basically heart-lung machine. It's a heart-lung machine. So
Okay.
you just bypass your heart and lungs and run it through the machine.
Yeah,
That's
so
a
the
really wonderful
issue.
The
But
very sickest patients, young and or adult. Yeah. So sorry, we probably should have clarified that early on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rama. You're sick
you.
and still showed up. Thank you for gratitude for you. It's an honor to have you in the.
Thank you so much.
In the important thing that you showed up. Thank you so much.
Dr. Pullela, thank you so very much for what you do. I can say that anyone who works in a pediatric hospital or a pediatric setting tend to be not only the most intelligent, but the most kind and wonderful people I have ever worked with. I mean, some of us run away, and some of us run to children, and I'm always so grateful for those who run to our children. So very much, thank you for what you do.
Good night, all of you. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining. Good night, all of you.
It's a pleasure
Thank
to meet
you.
you. Thank you.
Well,
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.